Arsenal. Saturday night, St Mary's Stadium, a quarter-final that was supposed to be a formality, a championship side standing between the Gunners and a place in the last four of the FA Cup. And yet, when the final whistle blew, it was Southampton celebrating and Arsenal walking off the pitch with their heads down, eliminated 2-1, and now facing the most important weeks of their entire season with serious questions swirling around this club. Welcome back to Melissa, Arsenal analyst. I am going to walk you through everything that happened, everything that was said, and everything it means for this Arsenal side going forward. Stay with me because this one goes deep. Let me start right where it matters. The final scoreline was 2-1 in favour of Southampton. On paper, that looks like a straightforward cup shock. But when you dig into the details, the story becomes much more complicated and, frankly, much more concerning. The match statistics tell a story of a team that dominated every measurable metric and still managed to lose. Arsenal had 64% of the possession. Southampton had just 36%. Arsenal attempted 23 shots to Southampton's 8. Arsenal had 7 shots on target compared to Southampton's 4. Arsenal completed 466 passes to Southampton's 240. They had 9 corners to Southampton's 4. By every conventional measure of performance, Arsenal were the better team, and yet the scoreboard read 2-1 to the home side. That is the kind of statistic that should make every Arsenal supporter stop and think, because it means this is not a story about being outplayed. This is a story about being outcompeted, about failing to convert dominance into goals, about giving away cheap goals at the worst possible moments. Now, let me be very clear about what was at stake here. Coming into Saturday night, there was genuine talk, serious talk about Arsenal potentially competing for 4 trophies this season. The quadruple, it sounds ambitious, it sounds almost impossible. But the evidence from earlier in the season suggested it was at least a conversation worth having. That conversation is now over. The reality for this club is stark. They are out of the FA Cup. They were already knocked out of the Carabao Cup. In the space of 180 minutes of football across 2 matches, Arsenal went from quadruple contenders to a team fighting on just 2 fronts, the Premier League and the Champions League. Those 2 fronts are still enormous. The Premier League title would end a 6-year trophy drought. The Champions League would be historic. But the manner of these exits matters. It is not just about what was lost. It is about how it was lost. And that is where this analysis gets really important. Before I go any further, if you want this kind of deep, honest, no-nonsense breakdown of everything happening at Arsenal, hit that subscribe button right now. There are no clickbait headlines here, no empty praise and no unnecessary panic. Just clear analysis on a club that means everything to its supporters. Let me take you through the voices that came out after this match, because the reactions from players, the manager and pundits tell us a great deal about where this Arsenal squad currently stands. Christian Norgaard spoke to the BBC after the match, and his words were measured but telling. He described the game as at times a little bit too chaotic. He acknowledged that Southampton were very sharp in transitions and that Arsenal did not manage those transitions well. He said, and this is important, that Arsenal had the momentum in the second half, particularly after they equalised, and then they conceded what he called a very stupid goal from a goal kick. At this level of football, conceding from a goal kick in a cup quarter-final is the kind of individual error that cannot be excused. But here is what Norgaard said next, and I want you to listen carefully to this. He said, and I quote directly, "There are no excuses for tonight." He continued by saying it had nothing to do with injuries or availability. He said Arsenal had a really good team on the pitch that should have been competing on a high level. He said they need to pick themselves up because they have 2 big competitions left. Now, as an analyst, I want to highlight something very significant here. Norgaard is not a player who hides behind excuses. He is not deflecting to missing players or squad rotation. He is holding this squad accountable. That honesty is admirable, but it also confirms something uncomfortable. Arsenal's performance level on Saturday night was below what their own players know they are capable of. Now, let us talk about the manager. Mikel Arteta faced the cameras after the match and he did 2 things simultaneously. He protected his players publicly and he challenged them privately. He said, and these are his words, "I love my players, what they have done for 9 months." He said he is not going to criticise them for losing. He said he will defend them more than ever. But then Arteta said something else, something that carries much more weight when you read it carefully. He said, if someone has to take responsibility, that is me. And then he added, no excuses about players that are missing or that are here with issues. Let us look at ourselves in the mirror, accept the situation, rebel against it and go forward with clarity. That phrase, look at ourselves in the mirror, is not a soft message. It is a direct challenge to every person in that dressing room. Arteta is telling his squad that the environment of protection he has built around them must now be matched with performance. He is drawing a line. When asked specifically what went wrong, Arteta was blunt. He pointed to the result and especially to the manner in which Arsenal conceded the 2 goals. He acknowledged that Arsenal had 2 massive chances before Southampton scored either of their goals. He said the obligation was to capitalise on those chances. He called it Arsenal's responsibility. When asked whether being knocked out of 2 cup competitions could be considered a blessing in disguise, allowing Arsenal to focus fully on the league title and the Champions League, Arteta gave an honest answer. He said he does not know. He acknowledged the pain of going out, but he followed up by saying that when that pain passes, Arsenal must use every remaining resource they have to maximise their performance and be better. That is a manager in a difficult moment, responding with controlled, purposeful language. He is not panicking, but he is also not pretending everything is fine. On the specific question of whether Arsenal look vulnerable when teams attack them directly, Arteta pushed back. He pointed to 51 games played across the season, won in many different ways against many different types of opposition. But then he made a concession. He said, without taking any credit away from Southampton, the defeat was very related to something that, in his own opinion, Arsenal have to do a lot better. He did not name it specifically, but the implication is clear. Internal mistakes, individual errors, a lack of sharpness in the moments that define matches, and on what Arsenal need to do to get back to winning ways. Arteta was specific. He spoke about giving players clarity, more conviction, trusting the process, believing in what they are doing. But above all, he emphasised maintaining the spirit, the attitude and the energy at the highest possible level. He described that as critical for Arsenal to perform at the level they need to win matches. Now let us turn to the external voices, because the criticism from outside the club was sharp and in some cases very hard to disagree with. Micah Richards, speaking live on BBC Sport, delivered a verdict that gained widespread attention. He acknowledged that there is going to be significant noise around Arteta's team selection decisions, particularly the choice to play Kepa Arrizabalaga in goal rather than David Raya. This is the same goalkeeper selection debate that caused controversy during the Carabao Cup final. Richards argued plainly that Arsenal simply have to play their best team, but Richards went further than the goalkeeper question. He said, and this is the part that cuts deepest, the most disappointing thing for him was watching Arsenal's attitude. He was careful to acknowledge that across this entire season, Arsenal have been excellent defensively, strong in transitions, well organised in their shape, and as hard-working as any team in the Premier League. That is the context, that is the standard they set. So for them to arrive at Southampton on Saturday night and turn up the way they did was, in his words, really poor. That contrast, excellence all season versus a flat and unacceptable performance at a critical moment, is the heart of what this result represents. It is not a question of quality. It is a question of commitment and application on a specific night. Richards also put the moment in its wider competitive context. He reminded viewers that just a couple of weeks ago, people were genuinely talking about Arsenal completing the quadruple. Now they are competing in 2. He noted that after what Manchester City did in the FA Cup, defeating Liverpool 4-0, they looked like a side capable of pushing Arsenal all the way in the Premier League title race. And in the Champions League, Richards said simply, anyone can win it. Ian Wright, an Arsenal legend and someone whose opinion carries enormous emotional weight with the fan base, was equally direct. He questioned the standards on display at St Mary's. He said, if Southampton can dominate you and your players look exhausted, like they do not even realise they are playing a quarter-final, then what standards are you really talking about? He reminded everyone that this is April. There are 7 games left in the Premier League season and Arsenal could not win a quarter-final away at a championship club. Wright said plainly that moments like these show exactly how ready you are to go and win the league, and he said he was disappointed. Let us now look at some of the individual performances and player-related developments that came out of this match, because they are very relevant to what happens next. The one genuine positive from Saturday night was 16-year-old Max Dowman. The statistics from his performance are genuinely impressive. He completed all 3 of his attempted take-ons for a 100% success rate. He won 8 of 13 ground duels. He made 5 ball recoveries. He won his 1 tackle attempt for another 100% success rate. He completed 81% of his passes. And he made 12 progressive carries, meaning 12 moments where he physically advanced the ball upfield with intent and purpose. Multiple sources described Dowman as one of the best Arsenal players on the pitch that night. For a 16-year-old in a high-pressure cup quarter-final, that performance deserves enormous credit. But it also highlights a problem. because it means a teenager who should be learning from experienced senior players was instead outperforming them on a night when those experienced players were needed most. The situation with Viktor Gyökeres is more nuanced. The Swedish striker, who joined Arsenal last summer from Sporting CP, has now scored 17 goals in all competitions this season, making him Arsenal's top scorer. On Saturday night, despite Arsenal's defeat, Gyökeres came on and scored the goal that pulled the Gunners level. And importantly, the way he scored it showed a genuine improvement in his game. Previously, a consistent criticism of Gyökeres since joining Arsenal had been his movement inside the penalty area. The tendency to drift towards the far post rather than staying central or attacking the near post aggressively. Against Southampton, when the ball came to Kai Havertz, Gyökeres made the correct movement, staying central and making himself available. He received the pass and finished with composure. That might sound like a small detail, but for a striker, movement inside the box is everything. The evidence suggests that Gyökeres is refining his game at Arsenal, and with Sporting CP coming up in the Champions League quarter-final on Tuesday, there is a very interesting storyline developing. This is the club that Gyökeres left to join Arsenal, the club that, according to available information, made his transfer to the Emirates extremely difficult last summer. He will want to make a statement. Now, I have to address Gabriel Jesus directly because the conversation around him has become impossible to ignore. Connor Hum, one of the most respected Arsenal analysts in the media, made a very blunt assessment. He said the big issue with Jesus is that he has no pace whatsoever. He does not run the channels. He is never in a position that a number 9 needs to be in. And the question Hum posed was direct. If Jesus cannot impact a game against a championship side, when exactly is he going to impact a game for this Arsenal team? The conclusion he reached was uncomfortable but clear. In his view, this Arsenal side has simply outgrown Gabriel Jesus. That is a significant statement. It is one analyst's perspective based on what we saw Saturday night, and it aligns with the general frustration among supporters about Jesus' contribution this season. On the subject of Gabriel Martinelli, there is a transfer rumour that emerged this week that I want to address carefully because rumours are rumours and must be treated as such. According to French outlet Media Foot, Paris Saint-Germain have made inquiries about Arsenal winger Gabriel Martinelli. It is being reported that PSG view Martinelli as a potential alternative to their primary transfer target, Julian Alvarez. And it is being reported that Arsenal would consider a sale in the region of £50 million, which converts to approximately $66.2 million or potentially higher this summer. Let me be extremely clear. This is a rumour at this stage. There is no confirmed offer. There is no confirmed agreement. There is no confirmed desire from Martinelli himself to leave. This is an inquiry as reported by a single French media outlet. It should be treated with appropriate caution. However, what makes this rumour relevant to discuss is the timing. Martinelli was described as isolated throughout the Southampton match. His performance was criticised. And if Arsenal are genuinely open to selling him for £50 million plus, it tells us something about how the club views his place in the squad going into the next phase of the project. Let us now pull back and look at the bigger picture that is emerging from this difficult week. The evidence confirms that across the first 28 games of this season, from August through to December, Arsenal made just one error that directly led to a goal against them. Just one. In the 23 games they have played since January, that number has risen to 8. 8 mistakes leading to 8 goals. The individual error rate has multiplied dramatically in the second half of this season. 2 of those errors came in the space of the last 2 matches. Ben White's mistimed header that gifted Southampton their opening goal on Saturday night and Kepa Arrizabalaga's mistake in the Carabao Cup final. In total, those 2 errors have effectively cost Arsenal 2 trophies in the space of 1 week. The pattern is difficult to ignore. Something is happening in this Arsenal squad under the pressure of the run-in. Whether that is physical fatigue, mental tension or a combination of both, the numbers suggest the situation is not random, it is a trend, and opposition teams are beginning to identify it. Southampton were fearless from the opening whistle at St Mary's. They attacked Arsenal directly and immediately. They showed no fear of the Premier League leaders. Manchester City did the same in the second half of the Carabao Cup final, pinning Arsenal in their own half and eventually taking control. The days of Arsenal feeling like an unstoppable force, defensively immovable and ruthless from set pieces, appear to be shifting for now. So what happens next? Arsenal's upcoming fixture list is among the most demanding in European football right now. The next 6 games are Sporting CP away, Bournemouth at home, Sporting CP at home, Manchester City away, Newcastle at home and Fulham at home. 3 of those 6 games are directly against their 2 remaining competition rivals, Sporting CP in the Champions League quarter-final, home and away, and Manchester City in the Premier League. These are the games that will define Arsenal's season. And on the topic of the Champions League, there is an injury concern that cannot be dismissed. Gabriel Magalhaes was withdrawn during the Southampton match, and Arteta confirmed afterwards that the news regarding his injury is not good. Gabriel joins Jurrien Timber, Bukayo Saka, Declan Rice and Eberechi Eze as confirmed doubts for the trip to Portugal on Tuesday. That is a significant list of absences for one of the most important matches of the season. Despite all of this, the evidence also demands that we maintain perspective. Arsenal still sit 9 points clear at the top of the Premier League. 9 points with 7 games remaining. That is a cushion that very few clubs have successfully surrendered at this stage of a season. It is not comfortable, but it is substantial. And Arsenal's record in European competition this season has been exceptional. The updated odds from Polymarket reflect both the concern and the continuing belief. Arsenal are given an 88% chance of winning the Premier League and a 26% chance of winning the Champions League. The domestic cups are gone, but the 2 biggest prizes remain within realistic reach. Martin Odegaard, Arsenal's captain, addressed the fan base directly in his post-match comments. He said, "We are not losing hope." He apologised to the supporters, acknowledging this is not what they want to see. But then he said something that will resonate with every Arsenal supporter who has been waiting for this club to finally deliver. He said, "Trust me, better days are coming." And they are coming this season. The question is whether this squad has the mental resilience to deliver on that promise. Daily AFC summarised the situation as follows. Arsenal will fight for the Premier League and the Champions League in the next 8 weeks. They have 12 games between them and a potential double. And if Arteta's side can lift both trophies, they will become only the 3rd English club to achieve that since the millennium. That context matters enormously. The FA Cup is gone, the Carabao Cup is gone, but the opportunity that remains in front of this Arsenal side is still historic. Adam Keyes, a commentator close to the club, put it simply, the true goal is winning the Premier League. Winning that title changes the trajectory of this football club. The FA Cup would have been wonderful, but it was always secondary to ending that 6-year wait for a major honour. The focus must now be absolute and unbroken. Here is the situation in full as I see it. Arsenal are a team carrying the weight of expectation, the weight of history and the weight of a squad that is visibly feeling the pressure of a long and demanding season. The individual error rate is rising. The attitude on Saturday night was described by some of the game's most respected voices as unacceptable. The injury list is growing at the worst possible time, and yet 9 points at the top of the table, 17 goals from Victor Gyökeres. A 16-year-old named Max Daumann showing the kind of courage that senior players failed to show on Saturday night. A manager in Mikel Arteta who is demanding accountability while protecting his squad publicly. A captain in Odegaard who is not shying away from the difficulty of the moment. The evidence does not support panic, but it absolutely supports serious concern. The next 2 months will decide whether this Arsenal side is remembered as the team that finally ended the drought, or the team that once again found a way to fall short when the moment demanded everything. The mirror has been placed in front of them. The question now is what they see when they look into it. I am Melissa, this is Melissa, Arsenal analyst, and I will be breaking down the Sporting CP match in full on Tuesday. Make sure you are subscribed so you do not miss it. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe this Arsenal squad can still deliver the double? Let me know. See you on the other side.